Yes, good day, board members and guests here at the meeting, and welcome to this March 9th, 2022 board work session. And I would like to introduce Mr. Roger Campos, who's going to lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiances.
We thank you for this time today and for the beautiful day at Southwest ISD. We ask you to bless us with your spirit of wisdom as we discuss the business of our district. Bless this meeting today and all those present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterward. Ready us to make every moment count. Enable us to draw upon the wisdom and experience of yesterday as we respond to the questions and concerns of tomorrow. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Can I also ask if you take a moment of silence for what's happening in our world, and everyone in your own way talk, the positive thought to maybe that into people.
Thank you, ma'am.
So we're going to go to number 4, which is consider approval of district-wide playground servicing and canopy renovation project. So that item, it was tabled at the February 15th board meeting. So in order to discuss that, we need to have a motion to untable it.
I move.
I second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second to untable that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. So moving on to item 4.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I want to apologize to the board for my oversight. I know it was tabled and it was tabled to the 25th, but due to some data that we were going to bring to subcommittee today, and based on the fact that if we get this moving faster, maybe we can get these projects done before the start of school year. So what we're going to share with you, Thomas, is what we shared with the subcommittee earlier today to answer some of the questions that came up over this project. And so I'm going to turn it over to Thomas.
Thank you. So this is for the consideration of the district-wide playground surface and canopy renovation project. As we presented in the last meeting, we had brought the synthetic turf surface as a recommendation to the board. There were several questions that needed to be answered from the board members at that meeting. We actually had Mike Carolyn come to the growth of the facility subcommittee meetings to answer those questions today. So one of the items that I did misspeak about when I was here last time, the synthetic turf surfacing is a shorter grass turf. It is not exactly what you would find at a football field that has the rubber pellets inside of it. It is weighted down by a washed sand only, and then the actual surface attenuation for the fall is done by a 2-inch pad. And then in places where there's a 12-inch slide and the 12-foot fall is in play, there's going to be 4 inches of pad underneath that surface. So there won't be the little black pebble granules that the kids would be able to mess with. It just be a surface, a washed sand that's embedded in the grass to hold it down.
Yeah, and then the sand is only there to weigh it down to adhere with the whatever glue or whatever.
It helps adhere to glue
Right.
down with
And it
the-
doesn't have to be, it's not like they have to replace the sand. It's
Yes.
just there for the initial, and then once it's gone, it's gone.
So then there was also the question of price difference between the poured in place and the synthetic turf. We went back, had them bid the poured in place rubber over the synthetic turf surfacing square footage. The total amount that still includes the canopies for the synthetic turf was $1,931,801. To go to poured in place was $2,045,877, which was only a difference of $114,000 and some change that I had spoke Previously, I thought it was higher than that, but when we got the number, the pricing in for the actual pour-in-place rubber, it was way lower than what I anticipated. So Mr. Carolyn also spoke about the heat on the synthetic turf as opposed to the pour-in-place rubber. In his explanation, there really isn't a difference. They both heat up in a direct sunlight. The rubber, poured-in-place rubber will hold the heat a little more than what the synthetic turf does when there's shade after a direct sunlight, like if a cloud goes over. But we are installing the synthetic turf and whatever surfacing we choose. There will be canopies over all of them. So at the hottest point of the day, there'll never be direct sunlight really on the majority of that playground, maybe just a little bit around the edges, but it won't be direct heat where it elevates it like it does in a football or soccer. So I don't know if there was any other questions that.
Well, he did make the point about maintenance, that although the cost isn't much more, the maintenance is much more on the.
He did explain that they installed both poured in place and synthetic turf. He said they've been doing more synthetic turf in the last 5 years. The maintenance side of it, they always have to go back and make fixes to the poured in place rubber, but the synthetic turf, they have not had that issue. I mean, I'm sure there's been a few items here and there, but the one thing our substrate is going to be a solid concrete foundation underneath it. So we don't have to worry about, there's been times where they've had base packed that they put the product on and then that washes out for some reason underneath and creates problems. We won't have that issue, but there still will be the maintenance of wear and tear. Both products will have it. The synthetic turf, when you replace places like at the end of the slides and underneath the swings, when you go back and have to cut those out and replace them, because ultimately in several years you'll have to do it. It's going to blend in much better. When you go back and cut out the poured in place rubber, you're going to definitely see, because of the fading to the colors, there's going to be a definite patch looking spot.
Yeah, and with the turf, they're just gonna be replacing that top piece because the foam won't need to be replaced,
Would not
so that's
need to
where
be
the cost
replaced. It would
is.
just be replacing the top, the grass and the sand and glue back down.
Did he have to read this after?
He didn't, he was taking it to another meeting afterwards, so I can get it back if we want to look at it, but the other maintenance item he did bring up with the poured in place, they do multiple colors. He said that inevitably the seams between the colors and the seam between the poured in place and the concrete curb always over time shrink and pull apart. So it's not that it actually hurts it, but it looks bad, and over time gets be a place where kids can pick at it and kind of wear away at it.
So the recommendation is?
Our recommendation is still to go with the synthetic turf and the canopies for a total contract of $1,931,801.40.
I move.
I feel safer now that we know that the
Well, I have
beads
another
aren't in there.
Who was the
For sure.
subcommittee that saw this?
Me and
Ms. Garza Lopez, Mrs.
What
Dolphin,
is y'all's
Dr.
recommendation? What
the turf.
I was good with the turf,
was it with the turf?
especially given the maintenance issues with the other, and also when you patch it up, it's gonna be really noticeable because the colors fade. So the patching is gonna be really, really apparent, and without the pellets was the really big thing.
Pellets and heat
So,
were what we heard
yeah,
last time.
And the heat factor was the same, practically the same for both, but with the canopy, it mitigates either, right?
And how much of a foam is under there?
It's 2 inches everywhere
For
except where at some of the campuses, we have a 12-foot slide that has a 12-foot fall height. At those locations, 6 feet out around that will have 4 inches. So there may
And
be
what
a
kind of
slight,
foam is it?
I did not ask that question. It meets all the ASTMs and standards for the playground surfacing that they require through that organization.
So it's not gonna
that
shrink
we do.
and just
No,
flatten
ma'am.
over time?
Whenever it will hit and then bounce back. Like mulch, the mulch ultimately disintegrates and turns into dust and is gone. And so this, you'll never have that issue. It just, the only maintenance issue will be wear and tear at the high traffic areas. And we would have to just mitigate that as it
Okay, well,
comes up.
thank you guys for attending.
Okay, so- We have a motion on the table from Mr. Brunel. Do I have a second?
I'll say,
Daniel seconds.
Sorry.
All those any more questions? No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Thank you, that carries. Thank you, Thomas. We're gonna go to Number 7, we're going to go into closed session right now. So as permitted by sections 551-001-551-146 of the Texas Government Code, which is the open meetings law, we'll be going into closed session at 11:44. Going to go back into open session at 12:29. There'll be no action item for closed session. Moving on to item 5, items of information, Crewell Road School of Fine Arts.
This is going to be the rest of the day, it's CNI, and so they have about 5 items that we want to bring a status.
We want to bring a status update on multiple programs, and so I'll turn over to Delila.
Yes, we're moving forward with looking at an academic model and also some work that the Roby Hidalgo has been a part of, the training network. And so she's giving us an update and also future recommendation for the board during the regular work. And today with us, we have our principal from Crewell Road Elementary as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be here. First of all, I wanted to just kind of sit and tell you that I've been working with Trinity University in really looking at a redesign for our campus. Is this working? It's been a privilege to go into Trinity after working with host work because it's much of the same work. So these are all the schools that are involved in that network at Trinity. All these school districts that are part of that whole program. It's really about a principal onboarding this first school year. I'll be done this summer. And then next year is onboarding staff and the third year is implementation of the school design. These are some of the framework for the school design itself. And I know some of you have already seen this, but really the focus is about growing our school and our family and our community and really engaging our students in the work. So we are very committed to Southwest ISD commitments as well. And we're focusing in on how do we integrate the arts into academics? How do we continue to improve what we're doing? Not only academics, but the culture of our school, the climate and the environment as well. My experience in fine arts kind of lends me to have that wealth of background and experience. And these are the things that I feel are very important to what we bring to the school in terms of what a child can do to improve their learning, to engage in learning, to just approach learning in a different way. We all know that through state assessments, this is even the direction that we're going with state assessments. Is how do we, use multiple intelligences, or how do we do multi-age grouping, or different creativity and the style of learning is going to change as we move forward with state assessments, and that's kind of something I'm excited about as well. So it's really about exposing our students and integrating the arts into what we are doing currently. Their philosophy, the philosophy of Oklahoma A+, which is a network that we are consulting with at this time to move our school in that direction. I have the expertise in the fine arts background, but I don't have the expertise in teaching teachers how to incorporate the arts into the regular core. So I thought that that was an important part of hiring someone to help us do that. And it's really about student engagement with them. Everything's about how do we collaborate, how do we work better. And then some of the schools that they have already in place, these are I guess what happens after they have been engaged with this program for a while. You see fewer disciplinary referrals, better attendance, higher levels of parent involvement. And really that's what we want to see in all of our schools. So this is kind of an overview of the program itself. They have something called A+ Essentials, which is really how the curriculum is tied into the arts. And so again, I'm looking forward to learning about that. And the teachers are pretty excited already because we've begun to work with them already. And we look forward to this summer when we do an implementation with the teachers to really get them engaged in learning. Because some of them say, well, I don't have a fine arts background. But the thing about it is you don't have to have a fine arts background to learn creativity, how to network, how to collaborate, how to work with our students, and eventually change the infrastructure of our school. I have a big vision, so we are moving in that direction already. And I do believe Crewell is the staff to do this. So logistically, we're looking at the foundation of the campus, still keeping it pre-K to 5th grade, fine arts for all. Some of the curriculum and the master schedule would obviously have to be adapted to embrace the arts into the program. Project-based learning is something that the district is also doing with Mario Bracamonte and his work. And we started that work at Trinity earlier in the school year as well. Professional development is going to be a big part for the teachers because again, a lot of them don't have that experience, but they are, they're going to change and they want to change. And so bringing that integration of the arts into the school, I think will really help the teachers do that. Some considerations down the road is this is the big picture down the road. This is what we hope to see. We hope to add more staff so that they can help us not only implement these things that you see here, but also kind of bring that expertise into the classroom to work with our teachers. And some of these things are already in place in our middle schools, and we want to be able to feed into the middle schools as well. The facilities that we have right now, that's obviously the 700 is the capacity that Creewall has right now, but we know that if we're going to do something like this, we have to add performance areas, rehearsal areas, and things like that. Dance studio, art rooms, and things like that. So we're looking at also flexible learning spaces. How can we best utilize every part of our campus to do something and bring our arts into our school? This is, I believe in this saying, I don't plan on sitting under that tree, but I certainly want to plant it. So I'm looking forward to that. This is the update that we've had so far. We are continuing with Trinity. Like I said, until the summer. We've also been selected as an associate school of the Oklahoma A+ Schools Institute. Currently, we are pending all the approvals from the district to move forward, but we have already brought them in to do a consult with us. They met with our staff on February 21st, and it was really hands-on experiences. And for the first time in a long time, I heard my staff laughing, I heard them engaged, I heard them having a good time learning. And I'm thinking if they can turn around and put that into our classrooms, especially now when things have been a little down for us, everything, let's just get back to some normalcy and let's get back to something fun that our students can do. The next day, that group visited our classrooms and had nothing but very positive comments to say about our teachers working together and such. And then I'm continuing my work with Farnsworth, who's Dr. Farnsworth from Trinity, and Joseph Ulveda, who has a big piece on equity in our classrooms. So that's another plus for our campus. So here's some things that we're looking for in terms of approval down the road, me going to Oklahoma and attending Not Your Average Conference. But the most important part on that slide is a community celebration where we bring this to our community. And we have our local dignitaries involved in saying, this is a great opportunity for the southwest side of San Antonio, and we'll provide that to our school district. So this is some of the first year cost. Obviously, you want to do the summit this summer. We also want to compensate our staff for that. And then there's more to discuss down the road when we look at the design, because it is a 3-year implementation as well from Oklahoma Plus. So something that we are asking for down the road is district level commitment. I think we are already committed to doing the best thing for our students. And so some staffing considerations as well. Looking at our professional learning for teachers, and basically how do we bring on an innovative teaching style to our campus. If you build it, it will come. We had the opportunity to visit with some folks to Arlington, and we came and we saw some amazing things. So we'd like to share some of those slides with you and some of the things that we saw and the possibilities that really fired us up, and how they create open spaces for learning. They're using their hallways for classrooms. They had a piano in every classroom. They had a dance studio, which is amazing to see the little kindergartners trying to dance. Well, they can't, but it was fun to watch them. Theater classrooms, kind of like what we have in our high schools, but they were, I think, practicing mime in this particular drama lesson. Piano labs where we can offer that for our students as well. Strings classroom, we know that for us, that could tie directly into mariachi. Art 3D classrooms, they had several of these throughout their campus, and the amphitheater outside where we can go outside and explore music and offer it to our community and invite our community to be a part of this as well.
So our experience when we attended back in November, we visited this campus. We did take a team that would give us a perspective from all angles. And so within this team, we also took our construction, Mr. Rafael Barajas, and then also our PR in order for us to just launch into this. So it's important that we bring this to the board in order for us to then move forward with approval, so that we can go ahead and market the campus with possibly a renaming of the school. So that's something that Ms. Rosie was to working with the campus in order for us to come up with a right name that will definitely explain and also exemplify all the work that's going to be going on at our campus and for walls right now. So the campus is really excited. We did have an opportunity to network with North Carolina. And the reason it's A+ Oklahoma, it is a chapter of the work of people that within this nonprofit organization can support the work throughout the years. And the calming part was we don't have to have a robust building in order for us to make magic happen. But it's with the resources that we currently have, they can definitely work with that and then just make what they've spoken to the teachers about. So we're excited because it's not something that we have to be hopeful 8 years from now. It's something that we can already start planning and doing. So any questions from the staff?
Great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Next, we have a
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I
Oh,
supposed
okay,
to
good.
say it?
We'll just move
I'm
on
sorry,
to the-
Penguin Project next.
Okay. For the Penguin Project, as some of us here, board members, were able to attend also today. We went ahead and attended, it was also back in November or October. And same thing, we learned of a great project, a great thing for our community. We have now gone through just the different timelines that we had here in-house. So we have MOUs, we have the excitement going, and so now we want to just pick up an update with Dr. Hogan and Mr. Lotus who are leading this project.
Good afternoon. Just a couple of things, we've definitely put some infrastructure into what it needs to look like kind of moving forward, some steps. The big things that we're really working on right now is looking at how do we prorate some stipends for individuals that would be coming in to do the work to get it going for this summer's program. There's some big pieces that go with that. Making sure that we're kind of creating the stipends for the upcoming year, really selecting the right personnel to do a lot of those roles, because we are talking about really those integration pieces for students with disabilities. How do we make those accommodations and modifications for them? So making sure that the right people are really in place for those things. We need to create a budget for the operating cost of the Penguin Project. We did have some really good information coming from both Corsicana and Broken Arrow to really help kind of guide those pieces. We do have to establish our camp dates and the application process itself, and then begin to set the parent meetings to roll out the actual project itself. And so those are the things that we've been working on. The big camp piece right now is we have set a couple of dates that we think will kind of tie into our extended year services for special need kids. So those kids that are coming in will already be there, that they can then tag on to that. And then those that are not can just come into the environment for those. Looking at our population, we really did talk about what would be the best time frame, making sure that we were giving enough time to do a lot of the activities, but not making it so overwhelming, because a lot of the kids are actually going to be coming in for extended year services as well. So we're looking at those pieces. The personnel structure, we looked at a couple of different things. Each of the programs really set them up very different, correct? Yes. I know that Richard spoke a lot to Corsicana and I did with Broken Arrow. It was great to see both extremes in terms of how they utilize their staff and what they did with that. And so we're looking at just in general what that's going to look like for us. How do we make that work for our culture itself? Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. And so what we did is establish a range of stipend amounts for the different positions that would be needed in order to make the Penguin Project successful. And this would be what the individuals that were working would receive in the 22-23 school year, once it's a full school year. Obviously, we have to get some work going now prior to the 22-23 school year. So because of that, we would need to create some prorated stipends to kind of get people started and getting the camp taken care of and all the planning that goes in with that. The parent meeting, marking it out, all that information. So this is very, it's very tentative right now as far as amounts located there. You'll see at the very, very bottom that some of this is stipends, but at the very bottom, there's some operating costs as well to purchase the shows and to, get the marketing materials out, all those types of things as well. And then if you go to the next one, I think it's on. Oh, okay. And so then what I've also created and what we'll bring to you at a later time will be a amount of what that looks like for this school year. So it'll be obviously lesser than these amounts because we only have a few months left in the fiscal year. Any questions?
And so we've seen two big projects almost back to back. And a conversation that we've had also with the senior staff is the need of us also moving on with a proposal and us being able to bring in the fine arts. Some help from Mr. Flores in order for all of these two big new baby projects that are going to be also housed under a possible new position for fine arts.
These actually come from our communication partnership with Opportunit.
Oh, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's why the range, I would have put just a solid number on most of those, and that's because, but they were different, a little bit different, so we try to put like a range of the amounts. But those are in consultation with them. So I got the exact stipend amounts from Corsicana, and so they were, in some respects, they were on the higher end sometimes, but in some respects, they were on the really low end, but in some positions. So that's why it's just listed up there as a range originally. So that's what we're looking at this point.
So,
And that's the what a prorated amount might look like.
You mentioned the new position that would help Mr. Flores. Have we considered maybe doing on assignment kind of a thing? Like, since we're just, I mean, we're not 100% sure that these, how do I say it? Like well, like one of our own people in the district, one of our fine arts people, to just go on like an assignment for 2 years. You know what I mean? To help you get these projects off the ground and take some of the workload off of you. And then we visit it again, instead of putting a permanent new position. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm just, it's just a suggestion.
I know that another vision that was expressed is having a special attention for elementary fine arts.
Mhm.
And so it would be a special emphasis, for the arts, with the different activities that happen within the elementary. And at the same time, I know from the conversation that Mr. Flores and all we have had with Corsicana, this is a structure which is a special assignment stipends.
Mhm.
And so we were to do just stipends, and this is the procedure proposed here for us. Now, in addition.
So
to
they would have their day job, so to speak,
Right.
and then in the after school process, that's what the stipend is for. Much
No,
like
no,
we
I
do-
understand what the
Yeah.
stipends for. My question is, or my thought is, instead of hiring a whole new position,
Right.
is that we put somebody on, that would be their only job for the next 2 years, one of our people to do us, I just don't know that we want to add a whole new position if we're not sure how we're gonna look in 2 years. You know what I mean?
Talk about that.
It's just, yeah.
That makes sense.
so my question is this gonna be a budget amendment for the stipends for our budget this year? Is this something that's come across as a budget amendment?
This would be a budget amendment to cover the tax for this year. And then they would be working through the budget next year. I would say, based on what I've shared with y'all previously on where we are financially, anything we add going into next year, we can almost say that it's gonna be, we're gonna be operating.
In the red.
a
Balance.
Budget would be fund balance that would cover any additional, even in that auditorium and adding staff. I can't sit here and say that we're gonna have a balanced budget once we get to a point, until we normalize, especially attendance wise and normalize as we get out of the pandemic. But we have some cards we can use. We have ESSER funds to cover some certain items. And Viewpoint project is part of that. And then we have our fund balance. So-
Would these be contractual stipends or?
Well, most than likely, these people would be working for us and we would get them a stipend agreement. And that's usually what we do is they have a stipend agreement. We have to meet certain criteria to actually receive the stipend. So once we get them approved, Mr. Flores will work to find those people and then get them on some kind of stipend agreement to fulfill the duties. So we can get the stipend.
And we have actually had an individual reach out to us that doesn't work for our district that heard about the Penguin Project and us being interested in starting the Penguin Project here. That is already like super excited and would like to, however I can help. I mean, the individual was saying, I'd be glad to come in and volunteer to work with students, this and that. So, I think once the word gets out, we'll have a lot of interest in this.
Mhm.
No, the timeline that we're sharing, which is the summer camp, that can also be something that we added, something that Corsicana does, is something that Broken Arrow doesn't do. So we were just putting the whole timeline together with the best of both worlds. If we have to be even more conservative at this point, we can also move the work to the fall. That's something that we don't even have to teach the budget right now, and we can just start this work in the fall.
And to piggyback on, I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead. To piggyback on that, I was just going to say that, you know, the most important part of this whole thing is that relationship between the special needs student and the mentor.
Yeah.
That's what's super important. So we want to build a framework or a structure where that is always at the forefront, so that the students can feel comfortable and have a you know, great success in what they're doing.
So we've always definitely leaned into pilot opportunities. So I'd like to comment about why make this big step now? Why not just kind of modify what we currently have and not put the constraints on next year's budget? And so, yeah, we'll definitely have that conversation and we'll bring that back and provide options for the board. But yeah, there's ways to do it that don't require us to go out and hire a brand new position. So, yeah. We'll look at that.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback as well.
But we also did start off some ESSER funds to
Yes, sir.
launch this program.
No.
So we've already done that part.
We do have our phase 2 dual language for middle schools. We did start this work this year with Preston Middle School, and so now we just have an update of how this work is being piloted and how we are rolling it out.
Good afternoon, school board members, district leadership. This is the update for our resident McCullough phase 2 plan for our dual language programs at secondary. And so part of the dual language structure that we're creating at middle school is continuing with the 3 goals of dual language, which is providing our emergent bilingual students opportunities to continue building their skills in biliteracy skills in English and Spanish, high levels of academic achievement in both languages, Spanish and English, and of course the social cultural competencies that glues it all together, using their bilingualism, biliteracy skills to be active members of a global society, our 21st century skills that we're looking at. So this is what we are starting to or continue to build on for our middle school. So we do have a quick short video, and I'll let y'all, if we have time to, we can watch that at the end, but it is a recruiting video that we use with our family and our students as we're showing them what the dual language program looks like at the middle school. And so that is Mrs. Sana Hernandez's excuse me, math course that is taught completely in Spanish. And so one of the important pieces, just like we talked earlier, is it's not only recruiting the student, but it's recruiting the family, because many of these students that are in our dual language program have brothers, older brothers and sisters that went through our dual language program, or have younger brothers and sisters. So we're recruiting, or we're actually having the parents commit to the program. And so not only is it a student, but it's also a family commitment. And so these are kind of the letters that we sent out that we share with parents to show interest in the program. And so if you scan the QR code, it's just a real quick, are you interested in dual language? And so now this is just the update on cohort number 1 versus cohort number 2. So at Resnick Middle School, we began last year with 29 students. We are now moving into cohort number 2, which is the new group coming in. And of course, the students that feed into Resnick Middle School are Medio Creek, Bob Hope, and Spicewood. So those students and parents we've already had conversations with. And so we do have 30 students right now committed and wanting to be part of the dual language program at Resnick Middle School. And so for the exciting news is for McCullough Middle School, we've been working also with Ms. Roxy Freeman on her campus and looking at what possibilities we have there. There's 53 potential students that feed into Resnick Middle School. Right now, we have 30 parents and students that we've talked to already that are committed to the program and would like to be part of the program there, the dual language program at McCullough Middle School. So we're going to continue in working with parents, having parent information meetings, working with the campuses to set up the structure just like we did last year with Resnick, following the same footsteps. So for us, really the next steps in our program in dual language is continue the recruiting process with students, with families, but also most important in the dual language program, we do require to have bilingual certified teachers at middle school that are able to provide content, certified in their content, but also provide the content in Spanish, because the dual language courses that are offered are Spanish courses where the students and the teachers are having all of the information and instruction in Spanish. So one of the things that we're looking at right now is who are those persons here within our district or outside of our district that possibly can fill those positions as we're growing our programs. And of course, with this comes the curriculum writing that will take place during the summertime, where we're building the courses, pulling the resources together, getting ready so that when we start day 1, the students and the teachers are really prepared to have a good, robust dual language program. And so this is kind of just a short update of our dual language programs at Resnick and McCullough Middle School.
I have a question.
ma'am.
It's not, it's sort of to do with this, but you know how we have all the continuing education things that, like the night? Do we still do those night classes for people that can sign up to do whatever? Do we
Yes,
still have
community
that?
education, like ESO courses.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we just met with her on Monday, and Ms. Gaeta has also announced how soon we will be having a graduation. Some of the parents that have gone through the program for ESL and GED, and so we'll be bringing up an update on that too.
No, well, that too, but you know how we used to offer like a photography, the continuing, is it
Okay.
continuing
Yeah.
education? Do we
I
still
know I
do
got
that?
My new
Okay.
paper about a month ago.
Community ed. Do we do Spanish classes? Like where if I could go and brush up on my Spanish
So to
skills?
learn Spanish, yes.
Yes, to
Okay,
learn
and that's
instead of-
something that we can ask Ms. Gaeta. I know that they offered it at one point in time in the district, that we can see if they still continue to offer that, but that is a community resource that would be great, especially in this area where. we have
Yeah,
lots of
because it might
bilingual
be nice for those parents whose children are getting into the dual language, so then they can, you know, speak it at home. If they're interested in learning, you know, it's always good to learn.
We can
Another
bring in
language.
Ms. Gaeta in all the courses that we are offering. I do believe I saw a conversational Spanish.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just wasn't sure. I didn't read. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we also have Dr. Holden bringing us an update on the autism program. And so a couple of years, the board allowed us to pilot this program at one of our elementaries. And so now we are going to scale that work out.
Great, thank you. Okay, so one of the great things about looking at some of the data that we looked at from the previous grant, which was from 2018 to 2020, is we looked at what was our total population previously, and what is it now? So as of today, we have 225 students who do fall on the autism spectrum. And that is different from previous. During the grant, we only had 159. So we are definitely seeing a growth, which kind of aligns with what we're hearing from TA, where they talk a lot about the autism tsunami. And part of that stems from we're seeing a large population of young kids who are qualifying. And then we have this big group at the very end who are students that are higher functioning that are getting later diagnosed. So that's kind of aligned with what we saw coming into play for us. These were the kids that we serviced during the grant itself. So we had about 80 kids total that we served during our camps. The extension program, again, we were targeting kids at every campus that were not necessarily a part of the academy at Medio, but they were kids we were looking at to comparatively see, did we see progress with those kids with utilizing some of the same interventions itself? We did a lot of parent training during those 2 years of grant. So we had 286 hours of parent training, and we really broke that up to meet the kind of the needs of the different age groups. But again, we were really only focusing on what the grant allowed, which was up to 9 years of age. So this was still all early childhood things. So our highlights really focused on a lot of the technology pieces because the previous grant really focused on that. A lot of peer modeling, again, really making sure that our students have models to be able to work from, a lot of self-management. A lot of the topics that we focused on are very much topics aligned with what we would do for any early childhood piece for individuals with disabilities. But we did a lot of, what we worked in was 10 sessions at a time, worked through those process with the parents, and then we would have them generalize those skills. The big thing that we left with from the 2 years of the grant that TA really liked was our live binders. And that had more to do with the fact that we had folders for each kid that were full of pictures and videos so that we could actually show a projection of where did we start with a student and where did we end based on actually having footage of those students so they could actually see the work in progress. So there were actually 10 groups that were awarded this particular competitive grant. We were, of course, one of them. And they presented to legislation what were the findings of those things from each grant. The big things that they talked about background-wise to legislators were we're seeing a huge increase. We're talking about a 95% increase in autism in general across the state. So we have to do something different. That was the big thing that legislation was really talking about. So amongst all of us that presented our findings, what we all predominantly talked about was those of us that focus on a very small target, meaning they talk a lot about 27 evidence-based practices. Well, we focused on 6. we decided we were going to take those 6 and we were going to do those really well. And those 6 really focused on social skills and behavior management and those kinds of things, because our thought was, if you can address the social and the behavior, the academics will come. So those were the big findings, that any of us that focused on those narrowed scopes, we actually saw more progress than those that focused on all 27. So recommendations that came back from legislation were that we need to expand the scope of the next grant, meaning beyond 9 years of age. They want to see, now, can you replicate those things in secondary and in your post-secondary programs? Can you replicate those across a district or with partnerships? They talked a lot about really building experts on every campus. So what we've decided at this point is, and these were just our findings that we presented to legislation, talked about where our increases came. Most of it was the social and the behavioral piece. But what we've decided to do, they have announced a new grant. They want to see us apply. They want us to do partnerships. That's what they really want to see, is they want to see you now take the expertise that you have really honed in on and expand that beyond the walls of one campus or one district. So we've decided to pair with a couple of different rural districts. I've been in talks with them for the last month. And our idea really is to expand the autism community on the south side and the neighboring rural areas. In general, these other 8 districts, in total, they really only have about 100 kids total between all 8 of them, students that actually meet criteria. But I have done some walkthroughs on some of the campuses and realized we have so much to offer in terms of how we can replicate that. And that's really what TA wants to see, is, can you now take all of those things that you've done and is it replicable? Can you make that work in other environments and other districts? And so our next step really is to take our model from the academy that we did at Meadow Creek and expand that beyond the actual Meadow Creek. And what we will do in this situation is we're going to basically place an expert on every campus. Because what we really learned from that is any teacher can learn evidence-based practices to teach children with autism. It's just giving them the right tools. And so what we really did was create a blueprint. And this time around, we'll be working really heavily with A&M San Antonio, primarily because they now house what's called Autism Lifelinks, which is really a hub for all things in relation to outside services. What we're wanting to do with that, though, is to expand that beyond Bexar County. Because right now, it's great that we can access that, but the rural districts around us don't have access to those things. So we're going to be working with them specifically to build capacity for all of us. A lot of the stakeholder meetings that we've had with parents, what they talk about is, I can't get a speech therapist to come to my house. And I live here in San Antonio, but I'm on the south side of town. How do I make that happen? And so we're going to be working with them to kind of create a better capacity for the Autism Lifelinks to support our population, really focusing in on building this collaboration between the districts, between the campuses, so that by the end of a 2-year grant, what you've created is a cohort of experts in 9 districts. And that cohort can continue to work together to support students with autism throughout the community. That's really the goal here. All of us come from very different backgrounds. We all have expertise in different areas. It's a matter of now really collectively working together to support students. And by doing this, we're going to be building that capacity across the different districts. So step 1 is building the autism educator cohort itself. Step 2, we really talked a lot about the SEL loss that we've seen in terms of pandemic trauma or just not being in school. And so we're going to be creating some SEL work specifically for that autism cohort itself. We have tied the Penguin Project into this for lots of reasons, but because of the big part of this grant really talks about what they want to see from us is those peer partners, that really ties into the Penguin Project, which we're already doing. So that if we are awarded the grant, we'll be able to tie some funds into that as well. All of the small districts around us are very interested in hearing about that and being a part of that. So I'm excited to see that play out. And then we'll be focusing on a lot of parent and community training. The parent training will change focus into more secondary pieces. A lot of the meetings I've had with parents, the big things they are talking about is mental health. How do I address mental health concerns for our older population that are getting ready to age out, those transition planning pieces, really working towards independence. and navigating community resources. There's lots of resources out in the community. It's parents don't know how to access it. So working with A&M with Autism Lifelinks is going to be a big part of that piece. And then we are going to be restructuring our transitional program to actually look at our autism population that doesn't necessarily meet the intellectually disabled criteria, but they have enough social deficits that they're not able to get a job. So it's how do we address those social and emotional aspects for them to be able to support moving out into the community. So we'll be doing all of those things with that post-secondary program. And that's the big piece that they want to see. That's the area that's really been the most lacking at this point, is how are we going to service the secondary and post-secondary students as they age out. And so we have, the grant itself is finalized, and we will know whether or not we get the grant mid-April itself. What I have been told by both Region 13 and TEA is there is a heavy point emphasis on any district that is submitting a grant with shared partnerships. And I believe at this point, we are one of very few. So I'm very excited to see how that plays out.
I have a question, Aubrey, real quick. When we first started, when we picked the children initially, when we started the grant, it was not the entire autistic community in our district. It was a subset of the children. Because I know parents have told me, well, my child doesn't have access to this. So are those children gonna have access in this new?
Yes, when we did the initial grant, because we only focused on 6 areas of evidence-based practice, it really focused on communication and behavior. So as I was looking at student IEPs, if I didn't see communication deficits or significant behavioral concerns, those were not going to be a part of the targeted group.
Right.
We still monitored those students on their campus to look at whether or not were we missing something with those. But as we transition out of having a centralized location and now moving back out to every campus having those things, it would target all students. What we will do differently this time is all of the pieces that we say are necessary for any autism educator to be successful on a campus, everybody will be resourced with those items and with those trainings. But what'll be different is that we've added some additional evidence-based practices that we're targeting that do breach, that go beyond what we originally looked at.
Okay.
And for a lack of a better way to put it, we didn't really focus a whole lot on my much lower functioning students. This time around, we will be looking specifically at that. Part of it is that we definitely learned that the evidence-based practices that we used for the academy, any child could benefit from having that, whether they have the diagnosis or not. So it doesn't need to be done in a centralized location. We just have to have the right people on each campus that can train that and support that.
And is it a new position or is it an existing position that has additional training?
It'll be an existing person on campus that will have additional training. They'll go through a year-long process of, they'll go through a week-long training in the summer. And then we are contracting with individuals who will be teaching them and coaching them through evidence-based practices. And all of those districts will be doing the exact
And they'll have
same
like
thing.
an autism specialty, I guess.
Basically, yes.
Are we
Yes.
going to stipend those individuals?
Yes, in the grant, we've embedded stipends for that specifically. And the big piece for that to me is we're wanting to seek people of varying backgrounds. So it wouldn't just be a special ed teacher. My hope is that we will have general ed teachers that will also want to take part in the cohort so that we can show that across the district, you've got varying disciplines that are willing to support that.
Right, especially we are having a hard time hiring special ed teachers, right? There's just not enough of them.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we won't have the academy anymore, it'll just be.
The academy will be, basically, we're moving into the next phase. That's the big thing, is they want to see it now replicated across the district. So you're taking the expertise and you're placing that on each campus rather than, because the idea behind the academy itself was not to keep them self-contained in a classroom, and they're not. They should be pushed out into the general ed setting. So the idea is now taking those experts and placing them on every campus so that everybody can benefit from that.
Is the middle school going to start out with the same idea of having like a little academy for them, or no? It's gonna be a different.
We do have
vision.
the kind of the middle school, a very small version of that, and it's really just, you just need to have the experts. That's what you need to have. And we've already placed experts at the middle school and high school, so we're already piloting that this year anyway.
Okay.
And that's working very well. It's just now a matter of making sure that at the elementary level, and that's really where we're going to need to see that, because we've got a lot of kids that are
Coming in.
qualifying.
Thank you, Aubrey.
Thank you, ma'am.
Excited.
We do have our summer school update, it'll be brief by Dr. Flores.
So while Roger's pulling that up, I just have a few slides to share with you. This is really just an update to give you progress on what we're planning for summer school. We're in phase 1 of that planning. So the locations that we're looking at are Southwest Elementary. Again, we're trying to look at our feeder patterns as we have in the past, knowing that parents are more likely to send their children to summer school if it's within their neighborhood and we're not sending them across the district. So I'll just go ahead and go into that. So thank you, Roger. All instruction will be face-to-face this year as opposed to last year where we offered a virtual component. There will be no virtual component. Our focus will be, again, as we have in the past, on the milestone TEKS and then looking at recovery of credit. We do have new this year, the addition of the HP 4545, which we talked about last year. So this is for our students who need the additional 30 hours of required intervention because they did not pass STAR or they need additional intervention to pass their EOC assessments. This is the one that we told you about last year that they changed with a 3-to-1 ratio. So with that, we're getting ready to send a letter home to the parents upon our return from spring break, asking our parents on that same letter to answer 3 questions. 1, will they give us the waiver and not have the 3-to-1 ratio? So we can look at a 10-to-1 ratio in our classrooms. Also, if they would go ahead and RSVP that yes, my child will or will not attend summer school, so we can get a better count for staffing purposes, also for transportation and food services. And then if they, of course, will have their child attend so that we can count that in. So right now we're looking at Southwest Elementary would be the host for our elementary fine arts program and for grades 3, 4, and 5. The special language program for Mr. Gonzalez has been renamed to La Escuelita. Those are our incoming pre-K and K. So with that one, a change that I wanted you to be aware of is TEA just changed it and we received notice earlier this week that we no longer have a virtual option. So last year we did a Monday through Thursday and then Friday they were virtual. Now the virtual option has been taken away. So they will continue with that program June 6th through the 24th, Monday through Friday, as opposed to the Monday through Thursday. And they will still then be able to get in the required number of hours that they have. So depending again on the numbers of HP 4545, if it's too many, then we will also have to reroute our students from Southwest Elementary and Medio Creek to be there. Depending on the RSVPs, if we don't have enough for that, then Medio Creek and Southwest Elementary would be routed to Elm Creek. So if we jump down to number 4, Elm Creek would then host Elm Creek, Hidden Cove Steam Academy, Sky Harbor, Indian Creek, and possibly Southwest Elementary and Medio Creek. It would just depend on the numbers so that we can try to reduce the number of sites. Creewall Road right now is scheduled to host Big Country, Creewald, and Sun Valley. That will also be the same dates. Everything is June the 6th through the 23rd, other than for La Escuelita. And Spicewood Park would host Bob Hope and Bob Hope and Spicewood. For our middle schools, we're looking at Scobie hosting for McNair and Scobie, both for the academic. That would be the retention and HB 4545. And then the fine arts, the middle school band. And then at McAuliffe, they would host Resnick and McAuliffe, and then fine arts and middle school mariachi, in addition to the Escala program for our middle school ESL students. And then our 3 high schools would host their own, because again, with high school students, if they're going to their own school, they're more likely to attend. So we could also provide the closer attention that we need for our high school students for their EOC assessments. So we would have services being offered at Legacy, Southwest High School, and CASTEM. And then we have at Southwest Elementary, because the extended school year in special ed, they're not allowed to have their special services at the same time regular summer school is offered. So their dates would move over, as Dr. Hogan had mentioned, in July. That's when we would have the camp there. Their secondary life skills would be held during, we have the dates there from June through July, and then we have Camp Penguin. Pardon? For high school, we're looking at approximately the bus arrival time would be between 8:15 and 8:45. Instruction time would be from 9 to 3.
Thank you, Dr. Escobedo.
Thank you.
So this has been a completion of several meetings for us to have this level of detail. And we're still also just wanting for working with transportation, and also with nutrition, putting nutrition to make sure that even those services are provided and then we're timely on that. So this is an update. We will be bringing to you an additional update in the future, just so that you know how we are doing. Right now, the part that we are really holding on to is the number of students that we're going to provide services for. With House Bill 4545, it is indicating that the students have to complete the 30 hours before every assessment that they fail, but they're not successful with. So we are looking and monitoring those numbers closely.
So we will not have that number till after they test?
So right now, we have our current number, and these students do not complete the 30 hours, then we would have to enroll them for the summer. Then we're gonna have another assessment, which is at the latter part of the year. For that assessment, and they fail, then we have to give them those additional 30 hours.
What's the number right now?
I don't have that with me. But right now, what we are doing is we are monitoring on a daily basis and on a weekly basis, the House Bill 45 services, which are the tutoring hours that are provided during the daytime, after school, before school, weekends, you name it. And so the campuses have put those programs and have implemented how they provide that intervention on the campus. And so we are tracking that. So we can give you an update even on House Bill 4545 in the future.
I have a quick question on this, the elementary sites. I didn't catch everything that Dr. Escobedo said, but you show Elm Creek Elementary possibly housing Indian Creek, Sky Harbor, and there was another, is
Yeah,
it
there
Hidden
was
Cove?
on Oak Pearson.
Okay, so why wouldn't we just take the Elm Creek kids over there instead of taking all the 3 or 4 elementary schools over here? Is there like a transportation benefit to, because I'm just thinking fuel costs right now. So if we're just, is there a benefit to have it at Elm Creek versus having it at Sky Harbor or Indian Creek? You know, just for transportation wise, it just makes more sense to me to have them stay over there and then us or Elm Creek that live over here to drive, you know, for the bus.
I know initially we had Indian Creek, I don't know what other conversations happened earlier with transportation of why we decided with Elm Creek, but we can go ahead and consider that after we speak with transportation.
Yeah,
And we can
I
make that
mean,
adjustment.
you know, because they just live
I
in
believe there was
there.
some construction going on, so we went
Okay.
through facilities, also through transportation, but we can bring that as an update.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
No, and at the same time, we would with Brandon at the table, is we're trying to be mindful of all the operations.
Yeah,
That, you know, we do want to serve as a committee, which is first and foremost, and then making sure that transportation, food, nutrition is going to be available.
yeah, I mean, because I'm not in on those conversations, and there might be a great reason to do that.
Right.
I just.
And I think it's hard for those 3 schools to go that far out, to send your little ones that far out, right? So even if Medio Creek's available, that's kind of an in-between school.
Yeah, we're kind of giving you a quick little break because we haven't housing for like the last 5 years. I think.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So we're also being mindful of.
Sure,
the
absolutely.
But we will definitely bring them up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it. Lloyd, do you have anything else?
In front of you, we have some really important dates while we've been here. Southwest High School was doing their one act play at Southside. And Cass Dim should be taking the stage in about 40 minutes, 30 minutes. So we wish them well. But there's good information on here about events that are coming up. We also have an early out this Friday, right before spring break. We do have growth and planning tonight, 6 o'clock at transportation, where we're going to be meeting for the first time. So just encourage everyone to go through here and make your way to some of these opportunities. And thank you for putting it together. That's very helpful.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank
Okay.
you.
There being no more business, this meeting is adjourned at 1:17.